On this planet Earth of ours, there are so many people and they are distributed across countries. Just out of curiosity, I would like to know and really understand what are the most populous countries on Earth and how do their populations compare? One way we could visualize this is as a bar chart, but first we have to get the data for it. What we're about to do here is download the files from the United Nations dataset called World Population Prospects 2022. We'll use a spreadsheet program to filter the data to just be 2024, because otherwise the data is way too big. And then we'll load it in with code and parse all the quantitative attributes. The United Nations World Population Prospects is a great dataset for this. We can download the data files as Excel. Let's open up this Excel file. This file has tons of stuff in it, and I want to just narrow the focus to the population of all countries of the world as of this year, so as of January 2024. And because I want to export to CSV, I'll have to delete these random rows here at the top. And let me sort it by year. Extend selection. This is LibreOffice, by the way. Okay, this only goes up to 2021. There's this medium variant of their simulation, which should have 2024. So this is modeled data. It's like a simulation extrapolation kind of a thing, but it's probably pretty accurate. All right, so sort by year. Now it starts at 2100, and I'll just scroll down to 2024 and delete all those other rows. And then I'll delete all the rows that are before 2024, like so. All right, now we have only year 2024 data. Now I'll just export this as a CSV file. And there it is. It's only 128 kilobytes. Now let's get this data into a bar chart. Because this data might be interesting to use in multiple places, I'm going to start by forking this penguins dataset and just putting the dataset in as its own thing. All right, so forking penguins, and then I'll call it UN Population Estimates 2024. All right, and then I will go in and delete the README content, and I'll delete this parsing logic. And then in data.csv, I'm going to delete all that existing text, and then drag and drop this file into the editor. And then when I run this, we have a brand new output. We can't quite see all the columns, so let me just change the font size over here. Oh my gosh, that's an awful lot of columns. Let me paste that here as a sample. And then let's parse the numbers. Here's the old parsing logic. We don't need to do any of that stuff to do with penguins. And these column names are long strings that have spaces in them. In that scenario, we can't use dot because that'll fail, but we can use the square brackets. And we can assign it to plus that same thing. And luckily, there are no commas in these numbers, so they should parse pretty well as is. Now we just have to follow the same pattern for all of these different columns. That would be a pain to do manually, but let's say d at, and then see what the AI will come up with. All right. Okay, it worked, but it only did one, so we have to give it a little nudge. Okay, male population, female population, here we go. Population density, sex ratio. All right, this parsing would work, but with so many columns, it's a bit repetitive. I would rather, at this point, refactor this. I hate to get sidetracked, but I think it's worth cleaning this up. The idea is, let's have an array of column names that correspond to these numeric columns. And then we can just iterate over all of those and parse all of those. I think that would be a lot cleaner and a lot less repetitive. It looks like all of the columns after this one are actually numbers. So what's a fast way we can get access to that list? I'm thinking we just console.log data at index 0, which will give us this first row. But we just want to list out all the keys, which we can do with object.keys. Object.keys of data at index 0. And here it is in the console. But that doesn't give me something I can copy and paste. So let me say json.stringify that array of keys. Okay, great. Now I get this thing that I can copy straight into the code here. And I'll say const quantitative attributes equals, and then I'll paste that whole thing. And now I could just comment out or remove all the ones that are not actually quantitative attributes. Okay, we've got our list of quantitative attributes. Let's just parse all of them in a for loop. So for each row of the data, I would like to iterate over these quantitative attributes. And I guess I'll call this key because that's really what it is here. And now we can say in a generic way, d at key equals plus d at key. And that should work in parsing all of our quantitative attributes. And it looks like it did. And just to make this thing a little bit more usable, I'm going to go in and set the height to maybe 1500 pixels. That way we can increase this font size and get something we can actually look at. Oh, but now these are too long over here. 14 makes them all show up. Maybe 1100 would be good. Yeah, there we go. And last but not least, let me change the URL on this so that we can import from it. All right, looks good. All right, that's how you can find a data set, reduce the size of it by manually filtering things out in an Excel-like program, export it to CSV, parse it with code, and then make it available for import. This has a lot of pretty cool metrics about various countries, and it is in 2024. So it's my hope that this data set will unlock a number of interesting data visualizations. I mean, you could make a map, you could make a scatter plot. What I would like to do next is make a bar chart of just the population and take maybe the top 5 or the top 20 countries. And here's a challenge for you. Visualize this data set in a new way.